Counting by Sevens, read by Mrs. Carroll, chapters 36 and 37. Our two words this time are Sadhu, a holy man, also the name of a character in these chapters, and pragmatist, a person who is guided by practical considerations than by ideals. So those are our two words this time. Counting by Sevens, chapter 36. I'm exhausted. I've helped transform the apartment of a single lazy, hoarding hermit into a family living space, and this has been done insanely fast. Now, as the bamboo steamer gets going and Patty has meat chopping up green onions, the buzzer rings. Lenore Cole is downstairs. Once a week since the accident, I've gone out to Jameson. I've had a complete physical exam. I've had 3 sit-downs with the psychiatrist, Dr. Ron McDivitt, and I've seen Lenore Cole twice. There's been talk of permanent placement in foster care, but it's not easy finding spots for older kids. I met a girl in the bathroom during my visit last Thursday who said that once your baby teeth fall out, no one wants you. She also told me that prospective parents always pick the blonde kids first. I don't think that she was trying to be a bully or anything. We both had hair the color of ink. The social worker isn't with us long, which is a good thing. I guess we passed the test. Patty's not trying to be a foster parent, but still they have requirements even for the temporary custody people. In the hallway, Lenore Cole says, "We will find the right place for you. That's our mission." I don't answer. I want to see this lady out the front gate and into her car and off the street and out of town and then removed from the county and then the whole state and finally relocated to the place they call Tornado Alley in Kansas. But it's not her fault. I'm the problem. Maybe there are all kinds of available foster homes in Kansas. I'm in the shadows of the entryway watching as the social worker gets in her car and pulls away from the curb. She drives right by May. Just seeing the graceful teenager changes everything for me. When I tell her that we have a pretend room complete with bunk beds, she rotates in her shell. She doesn't have an actual shell, of course, but whatever hard casing that protects her from life literally shifts before my eyes. Apparently, she's long wanted to climb a metal ladder before she goes to sleep. Maybe it's from years of sleeping on a floor. I don't want to disappoint her by saying that all of this is just for show, so they wouldn't haul me away. Once in the apartment, I thank Patty for everything she did today. To my great relief, she is finally sitting down. The world's ultimate pragmatist just shrugs and says, lots of words in Vietnamese. This translates to mean, what we expect rarely occurs. What we don't expect is what happens. I reach over and take Patty's hand. I'm surprised as I do this. I'm too old to be acting this way, but I can't stop myself. I manage to say, it's not a scientific way to view event sequence, but given what's gone on in my life, I completely understand. It's the most that I've been able to communicate in a long time, and I'm not sure if I'm just tired or if something has changed. But as I look at her, with my hand in hers, I smile. My teeth don't even stick to my lips, and Patty doesn't turn away. Everyone is really hungry, even me, and I never have an appetite anymore. Patty tries to reach Dell, but he doesn't answer his cell phone, so we have dinner without him. Then what's especially strange is that suddenly it feels as if we all really do live at the Gardens of Glenwood. We eat our food at the red linoleum-topped table and toss the paper plates. Dell doesn't have real ones, in the trash. Patty has Quinn Ha immediately take down the garbage to the dumpster because the kitchen is a trash-free zone now. We all help clean up and put away the leftovers, and then we make ourselves at home on the newly acquired used furniture. I can't believe that she has the energy, but Patty starts to fold Dell's mountain of clean underwear into tight, compressed squares. They look like they've come out of a kind of vending machine. That's how precise she is. Quinn-ha is in love with Dell's large TV, and he finds a program where Japanese soccer players use their heads to smash clay pots. We all watch. It is strangely addicting. I know that these blows to the skull can cause long-term health issues of a very serious nature, but right now that seems like the last thing I should be worried about, so I let it go. For a brief moment, because everything in this room is so different, I forget that I don't have a mother or a father or a place to call home. I lean back on the sofa, and I feel a sharp pain in my right hip. When I put my hand there, I realize that I'm sitting on a small green acorn. I have no idea how it got on the couch. Apples grow on apple trees, and cherries grow on cherry trees, but we don't say that an acorn grows on an acorn tree. Things like that are interesting, at least to some people. I hold the little nut, which is by definition a fruit, in the palm of my hand. May is next to me, and she smiles as she says, "Maybe that's a lucky acorn." I slip it into my pocket because maybe she's right. It is a seed after all, and they are by definition the beginning of something. I then rest my head on the back of the sofa, and even though my eyes are all watery, I can make out the full moon as a fuzzy amber and green lollipop on the other side of the skylight. And that's not a bad thing. Chapter 37. It was late when Dell finally stumbled into his apartment. He literally didn't recognize the place, and not just because Patty was asleep on the new Salvation Army couch and Quinn-ha was sprawled out on the carpet nearby under a red blanket. Dell shut the door and moved into the hallway. Willow and May could be seen sleeping in the second bedroom in the bunk beds. He wondered why they hadn't all gone home, and then he remembered they didn't have a car, and right now, neither did he. He'd walked home. After staring in wonder at all the changes, he finally made it to his room where his bed was made up with Patty's sheets and a fluffy comforter. Dell planted himself face first on top of the mattress, and that's where he was, only 5 hours later when the sound of the shower in the bathroom woke him up. It was not a normal noise. He'd never heard running water in his own apartment. Dell opened his eyes and realized the sound was from the bathroom. He squinted at the digital eyes of his bedside clock and saw 5:21 a.m. Who would get up this early? It was one of them, and he had a good idea which one. Dell would have given his left foot for another hour of uninterrupted sleep. He shut his eyes and suddenly saw himself minus everything below the ankle on his weaker side, his left foot. That made him wonder if the injury meant he'd collect some kind of disability payment from the school district. He used his right foot to drive, and most people did, so he guessed the left foot didn't bring in as much cash in a settlement. Isn't that the way insurance companies worked? Everything had some kind of predetermined price? Maybe it was better to give up a left arm. And then there was a knock on the door, and the Dell Duke internal idiotic discussion forum was interrupted by a voice of Patty Wynne. "Are you awake?" He wanted to say that he was now. Instead, he answered, "Been up for hours." He hoped it sounded deeply sarcastic, but she answered, "Me too." Patty pushed the door open and entered, talking. "Social services is coming back next week. Until they find a permanent place for Willow, I think that it would be easier if we just stayed here. I can't keep cleaning up after you." Dell was silent, not because he didn't have an opinion, but because he didn't have the energy this early in the morning to scream at the top of his lungs. Patty forged on. "I saw a notice on the board in the laundry room, Unit 22, just down the hall, looking for a roommate." Dell shut his eyes. This had to be a dream. Except that in his dreams, usually he was hiding, and often his body had mysteriously been painted bright blue. Dell opened his eyes. Patty was already heading to the door. "I'm going to get the email address. It's not too early for you to send a message saying you are interested. It's temporary, just until we get this all straightened out." Dell had seen Sadhu in the parking garage, but they had never even so much as said hello. Now, at an insane hour of the morning, he was sitting across from the man. The crazy Wynn woman had insisted that he send an email right away, and then to his horror, his laptop showed an immediate reply. The guy who was just down the hall wanted him to come over right away and meet. Shouldn't the man be asleep? What was wrong with all these people? Sadhu cleared his throat and said, "I'm a vegetarian." Dell nodded. Sadhu looked suddenly hopeful. "You are a vegetarian too?" Dell shook his head. He wasn't going to lie, but he also wasn't going to go into detail about his meatloaf obsession. Because Dell was so tired, he looked appealingly like someone who had been to mime school, or at the very least, believed strongly in the power of nonverbal communication. His answers were a series of head movements, punctuated by yawning, raised eyebrows, and semi-swallowed hiccups. And that is why he was approved as a roommate. Minutes after he took his seat, Patty Wynn came down the hall and wrote Sadhu Kumar a check for 1 month's rent for the second bedroom in Unit 22 in the apartment complex where Dell already rented Unit 28. She would cover his expenses living with Sadhu, and Dell would continue to make the payment on his place. As he shook hands on the deal, Dell found enough of a voice to make a statement. He said, "Spicy food gives me indigestion." Sadhu nodded his head as if he understood, but Dell felt certain the guy was pickling peppers on his stovetop.